I tried posting 90 times a week for 90 days in an effort to answer some questions for myself and my clients. How much time does it take, including the initial setup of systems, templates, batch creation, admin, my hours versus team hours, etc.? What are the total costs, including software, outsourcing, and so on? Is it possible to produce quantity and quality, especially as a tiny team? How much does each platform grow, particularly in terms of vanity metrics? How does the growth affect business revenue? What's the personal impact? And basically, is it worth continuing? So let's talk about it. So the 3-month content plan was intended to start June 2nd and go through the end of September. I actually started everything in mid-April, figuring out systems, templates, automations, anything that was going to help me and my tiny team be able to do this without a ton of extra time on our schedules. I actually broke this planning process up into what I call the big 4: strategy, systems, tracking, and the content itself. Strategy was all about figuring out the platforms that I intended to post on, which was Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, my personal private forum for my members, as well as a free forum that I have on School. My whole goal with this was just to understand the algorithms, what was working, what would align with my brand, and help me figure out the best approach in terms of how often I wanted to create content and what that content needed to look like to actually gain traction. So I'm actually going to switch over to screen share and take you through my strategy just very briefly. If you want to go more in depth into what I was planning or what I found out, there is a link in the description where you can grab this spreadsheet or this document for yourself. Okay, so this is the whole doc. Like I said, you can grab the link to this if you want to get into the nitty-gritty. I'm not going to go through all of this with you. I want to actually jump into the strategy overview and explain a little bit about what we were doing to build out this strategy. So number 1, I set some goals and KPIs. This was a little bit difficult because I really went into it open-minded, not knowing what I was going to see. So I didn't set any hard goals. It was more the goal of trying to figure this thing out and see if we could make it work. I was focusing on what was I going to be promoting in the content itself. I'm not a believer that you have to, share 80% content, 20% promotions. I share promotions in almost every single post because there's also value in those posts. And so it's value and the next step. A little bit of background on, what my content marketing was looking like and why I had taken some time off for it, what my strategy was January through May. And some screenshots so that you could kind of see what my stats looked like at that time. I don't have the updated screenshots in here, but I will be sharing that later on in the video. But this kind of just goes through what I was planning and how I was planning it. So the platforms that I was looking at didn't really end up including much or doing much in terms of email that was different, just had too much to do with everything else. The only thing that was missing in here is the BB community, which is my Breakthrough Boss community, and doing content in there. This was somewhat of the schedule. We ended up with Instagram spreading out Fridays, the 4 Friday posts into 2 on Friday, 1 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. But you can kind of see a schedule of what we were expecting there with those posts. And then content was going to be created in 3 batches. So a batch for long form, a batch for long form cascades. So this is anything that comes off of the long form, like posts, graphics, blog posts, shorts, that sort of thing. And then what I was considering fill-in content, which was basically everything else. And so that was the overall strategy or kind of big picture strategy, just to help me get organized, set this up, and get myself going. And you can sort of see like some things were done as we went through the actual process, but I'll get into some more of the content strategy later on in this video. So it probably took me a good 100+ hours to figure out the strategies. Systems did not take nearly as long. Really, the hardest part about systems was figuring out what was going to work for me as well as for my team so that we could all get done our individual roles and responsibilities, but it worked for our brains. So I'm going to show you a screen share of what I started out and kind of a high-level overview of systems and processes, but then I'm going to do another screen share in just a minute to show you where we ended up after several months of testing things out. All right, so here is my big picture system setup overview in terms of what I was outsourcing. So I had an IG strategist who was just helping me with content fine tuning. I have an ads manager. Wasn't really considering them in the sprint, but they are here just so you understand what kind of support that I had. They were the ones that started doing some of the short form brainstorming and content creation or content ideation. And then they did my short form reels. We added them, I want to say in July, the beginning of July is when that started. Did do some things with ChatGPT. I'll share that in a minute. I had an editor for my long forms and to take the shorts from the long forms. And then my VA did a lot of the, like once something was created, I passed it over to her to get those things set up. In the beginning, we were doing a DM to new follows and we stopped this because we just could not keep up with it. And most of them were just ending up in message requests anyway. So we really needed to come up with a new strategy for that. And we just didn't have the time to wrap our heads around it. And then this is what I did. So I was doing strategy deep dives, obviously setting all this up, content ideation, filming, creating the graphics for Pinterest, as well as graphics and carousels for Instagram, any copywriting. I was doing that myself, DM combos, replying to comments, and then reading the data and making adjustments on it. The systems that we used for this were ClickUp, Google, ManyChat, RevTrack. I did end up adding another system, which I'll talk about in just a second, and then ChatGPT. Now, I at first thought ChatGPT was going to make this so much easier, and it made it so much more difficult. In the beginning, it was easier, but what I really found was that when you're using really in-depth prompts like I was using, like this was the prompt that I was using, and then I was updating like a PDF or something or adding a PDF with it, it just was losing the conversation so quickly. And so I was spending so much more time prompting it one step at a time that I was like, this isn't helpful. Like it's not worth it. Plus, even though it was writing in my voice, I still needed to go through and humanize it, right? No matter how much I told it to stop using M dashes, it still wanted to use M dashes. And so I ended up just realizing like, it's taking a lot more time than I thought it would take. Now this, like I love to write. It's easy for me to speak about things. I know my topic very well. And so I ended up using it more for brainstorming, ideation, maybe a little bit of research here and there if I needed to find a quote or I needed to come up with an analogy for something. That's where I would use it. But the content itself, I ended up just creating it myself. So I do have all of the prompts in here. If you're curious about them, maybe you can make them better. Maybe you were just more proficient at AI. I just don't really love AI. I don't love what it's doing to small businesses right now. And so I just also, for my own values, prefer to kind of pull away from that as much as possible. I did do an update in here in terms of like systems and what I was doing. I'm going to walk through this a little bit later though. And then you can kind of see some of the initial steps. This was everything I was doing before we actually launched any of our content, just to try to get things organized, right? So we're creating templates and all of this stuff to try to make the actual content creation easier. And it did help, just not nearly as much as I was hoping. It still took a lot of time, and I'll talk about that in just a minute too. One system we didn't figure out until about halfway through was using GoHighLevel for our social media scheduler. GoHighLevel, who's also the sponsor of this channel, is what I use for my webinar funnel, about half of my checkout carts, text messaging, and a ton more. So it made sense for us to test them out for social media instead of getting yet another subscription. Now I'm going to do a full review of their social media planner in my next video, so look for that. But suffice to say, while it wasn't perfect, it was virtually free, and it did save us a ton of time. This is something that I plan to keep using. I wish that we had realized GoHighLevel did this earlier on in the process, but this is just one more reason that I recommend GoHighLevel to so many business owners. If you want to try it out for yourself, you can get double the normal free trial by using the link in my description. So other than GoHighLevel, which just helped us schedule, I'm going to walk you through some of the systems I use to help me map out and plan content, as well as the systems that my team used to help them manage the organization and scheduling, making sure everything was getting where it needed to get to at the time it needed to get there. So for the 90-day sprint, we actually set up a whole separate organizational system to keep everything in one place. And then we set up some templates to go through this. So first of all is my Instagram template. What I ended up doing here is creating a little emoji legend, and we would put the emojis in the title so we could easily scroll through here and see what was done, where things were at, what needed to be done. This helped me in terms of creation, but I don't think it was very helpful for my team. It just kind of made things just kind of confusing. I was hoping it was going to work for everybody and it just didn't. So, but what I would do is I was having 4 posts a day. So reel, poster carousel, reel, poster carousel. I would do any inspiration link, the raw video link once I recorded it. The final video link would go here. Any content for the reels themselves would be drawn out here. Any B-roll that I might have wanted or text on screen, all of that would be here for the editor. And then I would put in the IG caption, the ManyChat link and trigger word, a thumbnail link. We dropped thumbnails by the end of the 90 days. Thumbnails on Instagram were just added work that we just got tired of. If it was going on YouTube, the title, the description, and the first comment on YouTube. So all of this was in here for my team to pull through or pull from and get it populated into GoHighLevel all in one place, made it really simple. Posts, what I would do is if it was an image, I would delete this. If it was a black background, I would delete this and this. And that way, just for myself, I could kind of see what pattern I was doing. Again, I dropped this probably about a month into it. The text that was going to be on the graphic would be here. The link to Canva would be here. And actually what I did for this was I created one Canva file, and I'll pull that up and show you what that looks like. So I created one Canva file. This would be the thumbnail. This would be the carousel. But I was writing things out in that doc and then carrying it over here just because it worked better for my brain. And then we would organize it by date and title so that the team could download and upload it properly. So then that link would go over here, and I would tell them what page that graphic, the thumbnail, whatever it is, would be on. The mini link information would be here. The caption would be here. And then sometimes we would post this, editing this piece. Sometimes we wouldn't. And so I would just go through this and I would, put my ideas in here, create all the content, get everything planned out. And then I would sit down and I would record a giant batch of all the reels. And then I would sit down and I would create all of the carousels. And it just took a lot of extra time, but it was really the only way that was working for my brain. But then if you go back over here, we had another way that we were trying to organize this for the team. So I'll show you what that looks like. So this was helpful and not helpful. Like it was good and it was not good. It wasn't perfect, but it did work a little bit for our first couple of months at least. So with YouTube, we would, if it was a long form video, title, link to the thumbnail, link to the SEO doc, any notes, potentially a link to the main folder where they could find the finished video or where the editor could find the raw video to edit. And then these ones were additional posts. So if it was a text, a graphic, carousel, a poll, a short or reel, that would be in here as well with the information that they needed. This, again, I mostly created this for my brain because I needed to see a calendar and be able to map out easily in that calendar when my long forms were going, when my short forms were going. We didn't have GHL set up at the beginning, so I didn't have that figured out yet. I didn't like what we could do on ClickUp. It just wasn't working for my brain, and so this was. We did something similar with Instagram. So all of the details could just be filled in. Once it was ready, I would check this. Once it was scheduled or posted, my team would check that. LinkedIn, very similar. Open it up, post type, all of the details are in there. The school group, I put in some things that we could kind of rotate through. So those were in there. Same with my paid group. And then Pinterest, for the love of all that is holy, what made me think that this was a good idea? Blog posts, any videos, reels, shorts that we were repurposing, text affirmations. So you can kind of see we broke it down by different types. Same thing, ready or scheduled, and then anything they needed. Title, description, the URL that the post should link to, the board names. We put all of the board names in here. This was something that I sorted out before we even launched. And then the link to whatever the media was. So if it was a Canva file, if it was a reel, whatever it is. So my thought was, I'm going to put everything in here. I'm going to get everything organized that my team can come in here. It's all in one place. It just was kind of chaotic. So what I ended up doing was saying, look, I'm just going to plan the content. I'm going to create the content. I'm going to pass it over to my team. You guys do whatever the hell you want to do. So let me show you what they came up with that worked better for them. So first of all, we have a list inside of our marketing space called YouTube content creation. I have a template here that has the subtasks of everything that needs to be done. We just changed this date. These dates are all mapped to it, so it would change it out. And then we just add assignees. The production stage moves it from place to place. You can get something very similar to this inside of a year and a day, but my team did make some changes just based on her brain. We kind of were using the basics of what I teach in a year and a day, and then she made adjustments to it. So the only thing that I do, you can see on this video right here, the only thing that I do is let me actually show you on this one. I plan the video, I prep for recording, I record the video and upload the files. Sam then takes it from there. If there's a new opt-in, I might create that, but Sam outsources the editing, works with the editor to get everything proofed and ready to go. I will work on the promos usually. She does all the uploading, the blogs, engagement, SEO, analytics, everything else in terms of the long form. So this kind of keeps us on track, seeing what needs to be done, where we're at in the process, and all that jazz. Then we move over here to social media, and I'll be honest, I never look at this. So I'm gonna try to explain it to you properly, and we'll see how good we go at it. But you can see we have due dates, but we also have published dates. You can see that she did the same thing, social media stages. So what stage of the process is it in? Broke it down by Instagram, post type, channel. Sometimes it does get more than one channel. I'm not sure how she organizes that. And then you can see YouTube content as well. We don't have a lot else on here because we've been taking a break from all the other things. But what she was doing with this essentially was, nope, that's the progress. The channels, this is breaking it down by channel. So anytime she would have a new piece of content, she would come in here, add a task, change what channel it was on, change what date it should be published. And then there may be tasks inside of it that need to get done. So let me open this up. Any of these custom fields were all set up in terms of what everything should be. So I am still creating things in what works for me. And then I just pass it over. She sets it up in here, and that helped her and the other VA, the social media management, actually get this all organized. This did not work for me. Like, this feels overwhelming and confusing, but as a business owner, you kind of have to not micromanage your team and let them do what works for them, right? And so I was just like, look, you do you. Like, as long as I don't have to deal with it, cool. There is a calendar view. But again, I didn't like this. It did not work for my brain. I felt very confused and lost in it. And so I was still using the other template. Moving forward, I think that I may still use that other template for certain things, but we're going to have to make some adjustments just based on how much content we're going to put out moving forward. She may end up continuing to use this. She may not. Just kind of depends on the changes that we make. So we're going to figure those things out as we go along. You can also see how we organize. So we had June content, June raw, June finished, and that just kind of helped us figure some stuff out too. Anything like selfies that I took for graphics, thumbnails, anything like that for Instagram, we put those in here in case they were reusable. They were uploading some Pinterest planning into here when some of the team was doing that, but wasn't for everybody. And then some of our talking head stuff actually got put in here for June instead of being put in here. It's a little bit of a mess because when you are moving this fast, trying to get this much content done, you have to do what is necessary and not what is pretty. And so that hurt my brain and it kind of hurt my soul a little bit, which is why I stepped out and just let the team take it over. I didn't care. Even if we didn't hit publish dates, like, it was up to them to just figure out what we were going to shift, change to make it happen. And that freed up my brain to just be able to create the content and work with the clients, which is where I needed to be. Next came tracking, and it's really easy to track vanity metrics, but vanity metrics was only one small part of what I was really after. In terms of tracking conversions, that's very difficult right now because attribution is very difficult right now. People might see something on one screen and they Google it on another to pull it up. They might have privacy settings where our tracking is not going to be able to actually see where that lead source came from. And so we kind of had to do a little bit of inferring to figure out, hey, we just sent this email and we got these sales. More than likely it is from that email and not from social media. I'm going to show you in just a minute the actual tracking and the stats that I was able to gather in just a minute. But overall, this really only took about 20 minutes once a month. And then, of course, came content and more content and even more content. I really underestimated the amount of content and the amount of complexity that having that content would create in other random areas, like just the organization of it and finding the little pieces and getting things to the right people on the team so that they can get things posted. That sort of thing was what took up the majority of the time, not just planning and creating. So let me walk you through, first of all, what I was posting. I was doing one long form YouTube video a week, 3 to 4 short forms from that video that went to both YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels. Instagram was a total of 20 posts per week. So we did 4 posts Monday through Thursday, 2 on Friday, and 1 each on Saturday, Sunday. Half of them were either shorts or reels, a quarter were carousels, and a quarter were graphics. I then was posting to my free school mastermind. That was about 5 posts a week, Monday through Friday. My paid Breakthrough Boss community was getting 5 posts a week, Monday through Friday. LinkedIn was also getting 5 posts a week, Monday through Friday. And then Pinterest. I tried to post 10 times a day, again, Monday through Friday. So why was most of my content Monday through Friday? Number one, my audience mostly consumes my type of content when they're in work mode Monday through Friday. Number two, anyone who was consuming on the weekend would have plenty to catch up on. And number three, we didn't want to have to think about anything on the weekends. We wanted to be able to schedule that and shut off and then catch up on comments or interaction or anything like that on Mondays. We're really big about work-life boundaries, so that was really important to me. Now, here's how long it actually took me to create this content on average month to month. 4 to 5 long form YouTube videos per month took about 6 hours to plan, 4 hours to record, and 2 hours to write content for things like descriptions, emails, that sort of thing. Once recorded, I sent it off to my editor and my team to handle the rest. I don't know how much time my editor spent per video, but my team probably spent about 4 hours per week. But my team probably spent about 2 to 3 hours a week just getting everything organized, uploaded, and managed. Instagram Reels took another 1 to 2 half days to plan and 1 to 2 half days to record. It was also outsourced to an editor, otherwise it probably would have taken me another 30 to 60 minutes a day to edit. About halfway through this experiment though, my brain was so fried coming up with ideas that I actually started outsourcing content ideas to this short form editor. So he would come up with hooks and ideas, I would fill in the content, and that saved me so much bandwidth. I was still having to write the whole reel, I was still having to record it, but so much of my energy gets spent on coming up with the ideas. It's so much easier for me to just answer ideas or answer questions as they come in. Content for my free and paid communities was really easy. It only took about an hour a month combined, not bad at all. I did use ChatGPT to help brainstorm ideas, but I wrote everything myself. I also repurposed some of the long and short form content into these communities. LinkedIn took about another 3 to 4 hours a month to repurpose, mostly from other platforms. I did write some of the content specific for LinkedIn itself. And so overall, I was probably spending about 35 to 40 hours a month to create a month's worth of content, which doesn't sound bad until you realize that I have a whole ass business to run, and coming up with 40 hours in a month is actually very difficult. This is also not including what my team was doing, which was a lot. They were probably easily each putting in this number of hours. By the way, if you want to understand my strategy on content itself, platform by platform, all of that is in the 90-day sprint doc. You can find the link to that in the description and download it for free. So let's talk cost. I'm gonna break down what I was paying per month to actually get this done. I have one long form editor who charges $300 per video, a short form editor who also did the hook research for me. He only charged $750 a month, but this was because it was through my ad agency. So it's actually an add-on service that I was basically getting at cost. I have an IG strategist who I got so busy making content I didn't have time to strategize with, but I paid $6K for the year with her, so that's roughly $500 a month. I added ManyChat to Instagram for $15 a month. We use the social media planner inside GoHighLevel, which we were paying for other things. So this is basically free. Otherwise, we probably would have paid $20 or $30 a month for something. Then I had to add a social media manager for about $1K a month who was helping my VA just to get things organized and uploaded because she didn't have the time. So altogether, I was paying about $3,465 to get all of this done, not including my time, which quite frankly was money well spent when I saw the amount of chaos it was causing, the amount of mental strain I was experiencing. I was happy to pay those numbers to other people to support me in this, because as a tiny team, you just can't do it all. You may have really big goals, but we still only have 24 hours in a day. And in order to grow your business, you're gonna have to invest in things that are gonna help you get there. It was money well invested. Now, could you do better? If you have the skills and the time, of course you could. You could do it for free, especially if this was your full-time job. But if you are a full-time business owner and content is just part of your marketing plan, it's not the whole business itself, then I think you really are going to have to go into this understanding that there's going to be some investment in order for you to manage this without losing your ever-loving mind. Now, was it possible to produce quality and quantity? For myself, I'm gonna say no. Again, I had the rest of my business to run. I have clients to see. I have other marketing to do. I have things, appointments, projects that I need to be working on. And so I had to start sacrificing some quality to be able to get the amount of content out there. That doesn't mean I regret doing this. I'm actually glad that I did, because it allowed me to test massive amounts of content in a very short amount of time to figure out what was going to work on the platforms, what was going to work for me, what I liked to put out there so that I didn't feel like I was just adding noise to the internet. So not only was this content feeling like a creative drain, like literally somebody had pulled the plug on my bathtub of creativity and it was just gone, I also was struggling with this feeling of I'm just adding noise. You see, myself, I don't consume a lot of content online unless I am there specifically to learn something. If I'm going to YouTube to search something. Too much input into my brain causes overstimulation. I just get overwhelmed. I can't hear my own intuition. I get very bogged down with, stress and news cycles and all of that. And then I can't show up to do the work that I really want to do. All of that stress can also just flare up all of my chronic issues. So I'm very careful about boundaries for myself. And so being on these platforms, especially to such a degree, it kind of felt like it was clashing with my values, and I wasn't loving that by the end of it. Now, I don't think all content is noise, but when we do get into the habit of putting out content just for the sake of algorithms, just for the sake of a content schedule, that's where it does start to become noise. That's when we really have to ask ourselves, what is the fucking point? I want my content to truly serve an audience, not just serve a platform or fill a gap in some schedule, arbitrary schedule even, that we made or that someone else made. Now, you might ask, if I feel this way, why did I do this experiment? Because it was an experiment, because I wanted to be able to show my clients what happens and what does it really take and what are the benefits, what are the stats that you get from it, which I'm going to share with you in just a second. And there was a lot of good things that came out of it, but it is definitely not something that I felt incongruency with the entire time. But I did complete the challenge. About 90% of the content we shot for on most platforms, we were able to get out. Our biggest issue was just, things going back and forth with the editor, and that's pushing some things off, and our schedules got a little bit messed up that way. When it came to Pinterest, I really only got maybe 35 to 40% of the content done, if that. Pinterest I did the first month. I almost broke out in hives at the thought of having to do the second month. That alone, I feel like took probably 20 hours at least to do all of that content. So then I was trying to outsource it, and it was something that kept falling to the bottom of the list because we have other things going on in the business. And so finally I was just like, that's just a fail. That experiment was a total fail, and we're just going to let it go. We're not going to try to push that for the whole 90 days. So we didn't. So I know what you really want to hear is how much did each platform grow? And I'll be honest, not as much as I had hoped for. We did experience some really great results, but it wasn't from the content directly. So I'm going to jump over to screen share and actually show you the results we got platform by platform, just in terms of vanity metrics, and then we'll get into revenue. Okay, so now we get into tracking, and I'm going to share the vanity metrics from each of these platforms, as well as the known revenue that we received from each of these platforms over this period of time. So when we look at Instagram, I started off at 63.58. On September 2nd, I ended at 78.90. Not a huge difference. We weren't seeing massive amounts of follows. And the majority of the engagement pretty much stayed the same. And the majority of the reach that we were getting, Instagram could actually show us how much of that was from ads. And so it fluctuated, 91% from ads, 84%, 92, 87%. And so you can tell a lot of what we were getting was actually coming from ads. In terms of organic reach, I just wasn't seeing it. In terms of known sales, it was about $400 from Instagram that we could directly track to Instagram. That doesn't mean that Instagram didn't help make money in other ways. It's just this is what we could actually attribute and know it came from Instagram. So YouTube subscribers went from 28,563 to 28,869. We did not see the reach at all. I was not seeing a huge, actually we saw a drop in our CTR. We did see a little bit of an increase in watch hours, but not from where we started. Our new subscribers month to month was not big, but again, these are my slow months. I kind of expect these things over these months anyway, but it really didn't help me break out of the algorithm jail of being off of these platforms for so long. I just couldn't get back to the reach that I had before I had to take that break. In terms of ad revenue from YouTube, very little month over month, but we did see some sales and we did see some sponsorship coming in from that. LinkedIn, we had a little bit more growth. If you look at the percentage of it, we went from 657 to 900. You can see the changes in profile views actually went down. And I think this was where quality versus quantity really came into play. The quality of my post had to go down to come up with that much content every single week. And so I think that the reach dropped because of that. But also LinkedIn, it is a little bit quieter in the summertime. So again, maybe it was just seasonal. It's hard to know. Pinterest, we basically saw almost no change. I mean, there was a little bit of an increase in terms of monthly views, but not a ton whatsoever. And I obviously didn't even get July's, so I don't even know what that was. We cleaned up a bunch of people, so this number actually went down. So I would actually say it essentially stayed the same in terms of followers, no known revenue that we could see. I do, however, think that Pinterest is a long game, so I'm glad to have this stuff up there, and I do still plan to put more content up there. I'm just not expecting immediate returns from it. School, we went from 403 members to 548. Known sales from it, I know that I had at least 1247. I don't know in terms of attribution. You know, we have people coming into school and then they get into the webinar. We attribute that to the webinar. So it's hard to tell with some of this just how much it helped. But I do know that having accessibility to somebody in my industry helps a lot in terms of trust factor. And so I do think that this does make a difference for a lot of buyers. Now let's talk about how much each platform actually earned, because I'm sure as a business owner like me, you want to know what is the return on all of this investment? What are we actually seeing? So only from what I could directly attribute to content itself, we made about $8,000 in sponsorships and about $2,500 in sales. These are sales directly from content, not content that led to another funnel that then led to a sale. So from content generated sales, we pretty much just broke even in terms of our expenses and what we got back from those expenses. What really impressed me though was the impact that that organic content had on our paid media, our Meta, Facebook and Instagram ads. I run webinar ads to cold traffic for my webinar that sells my Breakthrough Boss program. These run at an average throughout the summer. It averaged anywhere from $150 to $300 a day just to that webinar funnel. My sales from those ads and that funnel grew exponentially simply because somebody was coming in as cold traffic. They find the ad and then they go to my profile, they look at some content, they get on the list, they get some emails, and it's essentially moving them from cold to warm in 7 days or less. The content essentially was just working in conjunction with my ads to help people to know that I was the person that they were looking for. So it was one part of this ecosystem. So instead of needing it to function on its own and bring in revenue on its own, it could work as part of an ecosystem. So how much revenue did I actually see? So June through August is our slowest season, and we actually usually only see anywhere from 20 to 30% of sales that we normally see the rest of the year. This has been the case for me in multiple industries. I've seen it over the span of 15 plus years. What the content did though was help us boost that up to about 50 to 60% of what we normally see. So although it was still lower than what I'm expecting in the fall and in the new year, it was still much higher than it would have been otherwise. We ended up with $65K in cash collected over that span of time. More than twice that number actually sold and will be collected through payment plans over the next 3 to 9 months. Now again, summer is my slow season, so I think it really helped to do it then, but it would have been interesting to do this through my busy season and see the difference there. This leads me to question number 6. What was the personal impact? And I'm going to be honest, it was a lot. It was too much. I'm already running my business with chronic and genetic conditions. I already have to be extremely careful of my well-being. And when stress increases for me, it increases my symptoms. I had massive health setbacks throughout this process that at first were very confusing. I didn't know what was happening. And then I started realizing that these were stress induced. My fatigue was going up, my pain was going up, my brain fog was going up because stress acts like an inflammatory compound on our body and it just makes everything function less than ideal. And when you're already in less than ideal situations like I am, it's just way too much. And so this is one of the reasons why I often tell business owners, if you can get away with little to no social media, do it, because the amount of time and energy that you're going to spend is not worth it when you look at the impact it's going to have on you. So mileage is going to vary here, right? I don't want you to look at my situation and assume it's going to be your situation. If you're called to something like this, test it out. It's not like you're married to it. It's not like you can't change it. We changed things throughout, like dropping Pinterest, because it just wasn't worth the stress. But don't underestimate the impact that stress can have on you. I might be the canary in the coal mine who's going to feel it before other people, but that doesn't mean it's not going to catch up with you eventually too. Which leads us to the final question, is it worth continuing? Am I going to continue it? And my answer is hell to the mother loving no. I plan to continue with content, but not to the same degree at all. Now that we have some systems in place, cutting down quite a bit is going to be so easy, and it's still going to look like we're doing more content than most people do, simply because now we have these systems in place that's going to make it really easy. So here is my plan going forward. First of all, I took most of September off and only posted short form content to Instagram and YouTube and some leftover content that we didn't get posted during that 3-month period. Moving forward, I plan to do about 2 YouTube long form videos per month. We'll have 3 to 4 reels from those long forms that will be posted to YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels. I'll have another 15 total reels throughout the month, so roughly we should have about a reel a day. I'm only going to post to Pinterest when we have new long form videos come out or if I have new lead magnets or offers. LinkedIn will probably be about once a week, more than likely based around the long form video of that week or some other topic that's on my mind. My communities are going to vary, but I'm guessing 1 to 3 times a week max. This is going to look a lot more organic. So instead of 360 pieces of content a month, I'm going to be creating about 40. Much of this will be repurposed from one platform to another, and I'm going to reserve the right to do even less if I damn well choose. Because again, social media is one part of my cohesive marketing plan. I don't have to rely solely on it. I love what I do. I love working with my clients. I love teaching classes, and I love creating content that serves a purpose, but I don't love creating noise, and I don't love creating stress. That defeats the purpose of business for me, because my definition of business is not just making lots of money, it's also having freedom and flexibility and fun built into that. Social media is one tool that we should use as business owners if it even fits our business plan. But it's not the only tool, and we definitely should not be used by it. I did this experience to show clients what would happen if a tiny team took on content on this scale. I wanted to show them the good, the bad, and the ugly. And despite giving it my best shot, and despite getting some amazing results from it, I still believe that most business owners would be better served with little to no social media content, only if their niche, their industry demands it. And so that's what I'm going to continue to do. It's going to be a part of my marketing plan, but not the whole damn thing, because I want a business that does not burn me out. And I hope you want the same for yourself. If you've tried an experiment like this for yourself, drop a comment and let me know, and add a fist bump. Let me know you watched it to the end. And remember this, the number one rule in business is that you make the rules. So make sure you're making rules that work for you. You got this.